So this journey is quite revealing as you clean yourself out and you shed these old programmings and the indoctrination, with the realization that literally everything, since the day we were born, our parents signed us over to the state. Um, that everything since that moment, everything that we think we know, that we've been taught, has been a complete 180 of the actual truth of what things are. And everything I've been posting is not my idea of an ideal world. It is my own observations and experimentations and allowing myself to accept things that go against the core of that false self, that false paradigm of who I was imbued with, that I am. And, these systems taught me that I was just dumb and needed guidance and to be taught, and I needed certifications, and I needed validations, and I needed proofs, all within their systems of slavery, within their confines of keeping us in a low vibrational state that doesn't allow us to accept the absolute amazing power of who we are. And you really have to think about that. Like, why would these systems set themselves up in such a way that it is so imperative that they keep us in these states? Why is it so important for them to make us think that if we don't have all of these worldly experiences, as in having different jobs, getting all these different educations and certificates, training underneath all these gurus and leaders, and then we have no position to ascertain that we are worthy of speaking or worthy of acknowledging our own observations and experimentations. So, for example, like with this whole animal thing, I've never been an animal lover. I had cats and dogs, but just because that, we needed companionship, or, for whatever other reason, to fill that void and try to get that connection with something, while at the same time thinking that, they're just dumb animals. And so what we're doing by passing that down is we're taking that same construct within which the slavery systems have us operating, and then we're applying it to everything outside of us. And so by holding on to these systems and not addressing them and not breaking these programmings and allowing and like falsely believing that we're healing or making steps towards the reclamation of our wholeness and our birthright and the undeniable truth of who we are as eternal souls inside of, operating the most advanced biological system on this earth, um, by not allowing ourselves the grace to completely break that foundation that we had established ourselves on in these lifetimes, we get nowhere. We're still operating within these systems. And if we're not willing to, at any given moment, when presented with an undeniable truth that cuts deeply to the heart of us and who we are, and try to hold on to these paradigms and stay within these parameters, we're just still operating within these systems. And so it takes a humbleness. It's humiliating. It's humiliating to the ego that has convinced us that it is doing what is in our best interest. In a way it is, and it has, because it's kept us alive and gotten us to this point. But to truly thrive, to truly embrace this wholeness, to truly step out and accept and integrate this freedom that we have, we need to accept these hard truths. And they're extremely hard truths to tell somebody who's eaten animal flesh their whole life that these are satanic ritual abuse sacrifices, and that by partaking in them, we are bringing that energy into our bodies. And that is affecting how we think, how we feel, and how we perceive things. And we cannot hope to have a shift in perspective and make the true changes that are going to affect these new beginnings unless we are willing and courageous enough to burn it all to the ground. And, the old man, when he hears, well, you got to give up animal flesh. Well, if that person has already given up 20 other things of their other copes to be able to get through this life, and that's the one thing they're still holding on to, and they're still embracing those old constructs of nutrition and these coping mechanisms, it's not going to work. We have to understand and fully comprehend that unless we fully take this responsibility on, that we are literally shooting ourselves in the foot, because we shouldn't be coping through this life. This life is a gift. It's called the present moment for a reason. And if you're still eating animal flesh, knowing with the knowledge of what it contributes to, these systems that it contributes to, and the fact that these animals are literally being raped and force bred into existence to be chemically altered and forced into growing so quickly their limbs can't and their organs can't even keep up, and they're being cut off, their lives are being cut off within months when they're supposed to live 20, 30 years, and that these things are sentient beings. And we can still consume that in order to cope. We need to really understand what we're doing. we're doing something so against our nature and what it means to be human that we are not allowing ourselves the grace to accept this gift of life. And we're just literally coping. We are coping every day, hoping and praying, even if you don't believe in religion or God or anything. We're still living in fear, coming from a fear base. And that's what we need to get rid of. We need to get rid of that fear base and build that trust within ourselves. And, these copes are just a sign. It's like it's a symptom of the sickness. It's a symptom of the system, and these systems are operating exactly how they're supposed to. They're supposed to keep you broken. They're supposed to keep you sacrificing your authenticity. They're supposed to keep you giving up who you are and sacrificing what you know to be correct and true and right in order to cope, because you're living in fear. You're living in doubt. You're living in worry. And I no longer come from that. I have none of that. I have none of that. Oh my gosh, they could come get me anytime, and I just hope that it's a quick ending, and I just hope that I don't suffer too much. We've been suffering our whole lives. We suffer every time we take an action that goes against what we know in our hearts and in our minds and in our souls to be incorrect. And the true power lies within us each time, and it's shown evidence of each time we take that physical action, that physical step to no longer participate in and propagate these systems, even though nobody else is looking, even though nobody else knows or cares that you're going to the store and buying animal flesh, even though nobody else is witnessing your copes. You are witnessing your copes. You are having to live with that. And that is cognitive dissonance. And that causes anger and anxiety and frustration and, just the sense of, I just want it all to be over. And not because you can't allow yourself to embrace the gift of the present moment when you're living like that. And the animal thing is just one part, but it's to me, after being through all of this and all of this past 5 years of just complete 100% dedication to this exposure of exactly what we're in and how it's operating and how we're participating and propagating it, it's undeniable that unless you're willing to burn it all to the ground and give it all up, the true changes in your life, the things to be gleaned from making those changes will not be fully realized because you're sitting on the fence. And you're trying to hold on to things that are making you feel safe and comfortable, like the lie of nutrition. Like when you're detoxing heavy because you're coming off of processed foods, because you're coming off of animal flesh, because you're no longer listening, all day long to this music or these podcasts that are just distracting you, and you're using them as an excuse as finding the truth, or, it's got truth in it or whatever. It's all distraction. all of it is just 100% distraction if you have not addressed these uncomfortable truths. And you know, a a good way you can experiment with that is to sit down and say out loud whatever the uncomfortable truth for you is, whatever you're clinging on to, whatever it is that you're still addicted to, whatever it is that you're denying that you're addicted to, whatever it is that you're using as a cope, whatever it is that is keeping you in a fear base and not allowing you to wake up grateful every day and be able to, no matter what outside experience happens, to, instead of looking at it like, oh my God, I hope that doesn't happen again, or wow, I'm being attacked, but rather look at it as, why am I reacting in this manner? So for example, another example, so, because I don't want to get hung up on just one thing. This isn't just the animal thing. This is, for example, like my dream or nightmare, whatever you want to call it, that I had the other night. To me, it was a revelation. It was a gift. That dream, that video that I made the other day about the very sexual nature of this nightmare that involved my mom and my and possible in-laws that I've had, and my own daughter. And instead of looking at it as a scary thing, or that I'm being attacked by these outside forces or ethereal forces or spiritual forces that are trying to scare me away from the truth or from continuing on my path, I saw it immediately as an opportunity for exposure. They were exposing themselves, and now the only difference was if I had that dream like a year ago, it probably would have scared the shit out of me, and it probably would have felt like a spiritual attack. But having it the other day, and with how far I've come, I have seen it as nothing but a blessing, as the most amazing opportunity to dig deeper and be able to take those physical steps necessary in order to continue this deeper healing. And it came right when I was prepared, when I was ready for it, to be able to see the opportunity in it. Because like I said, this was a very deep, dark energy that's been plaguing my lineage for, I don't know how long, but for quite a while. And not just my own blood lineage, but through my first wife's in-laws lineage. And I can see how that ancient energy is pervasive in society, because I can look back and see the types of women that I was attracted to, or that were attracted to me. And that was an energy that was magnetized to me because of the unhealed trauma and abuse that I had refused to face my whole life. And so this goes back, to, again, having to face my childhood trauma and abuse and work through those things. And so now that I have, and gotten on such a deep level, I've been given this gift of facing these ancestral traumas and healing through space and time. And, if you haven't gotten this far, that's going to sound like the craziest, wildest new age shit, possible. And I feel sorry for you if that's where you're at, if that's where you choose to stay. Because you are limiting yourself, you are keeping yourself within these paradigms. And that's why I have such a problem with the Christian religion. Any religion, period, any kind of structure that says this is the way it is, where you have to go outside yourself, get the answer, and then no matter what those answers are, and they go against what you're feeling, and from your own observations and experiences and your own intuitions telling you otherwise, you have to shut that down because this outside source told you, well, this is the structure. You're not going to heaven without it. You can't. No, you don't know. You aren't smart enough. You weren't taught. You're not a master. You're not this. You're not that. You don't have authority. No. Anything that's telling you that you don't have divine sovereignty in your life, that you don't have divine authority over this vessel and this mind, is satanic. And I use the word satanic because I think it immediately triggers within us something that is against our higher good. So this goes for anything, and that's why I have such a problem with the Christian religion, because that's what I was brought up in, and having to, even to this day, still face and address every moment when shame, guilt, doubt, worry, fear, pop up in my daily experiences, and be able to trace them back to these systems that imbued me with these systems of, I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I'm stupid. I wasn't born with the innate knowledge of how to be. And it's completely untrue, because you cannot accept the fact that you're an eternal soul operating the most advanced biological system on this earth and accept the fact that you don't know anything and all the answers lay outside of you, and that you have to rely on them for salvation, and that their answers, when they go against your intuition, that gut feeling, that spirit, when it's telling you otherwise, that you have to give up that own divinity within, that own authority within, that own intuition, that own connection, that own truth of being an eternal, all-knowing, all-powerful soul occupying the most advanced biological system on this earth. You have to give that up in order to remain within those structures. And the Christian religion is so pervasive in these manners through which they govern and control our thought processes and our ability to be free. We are so powerful. And by powerful, I don't mean that you can physically go out there and lift a house. I don't mean you can physically go out there and juggle cars on your hands. I don't mean that kind of power. I mean power is the ability to change. That is what I mean by power. Power is the ability to change. And if you find yourself constantly viewing outside things through the perspective of fear, worry, being attacked, not being enough, not ready, and these types of things, you are diminishing who you are, and you are causing yourself cognitive dissonance. Because there should be no fear. There should be no worry. We should be giving thanks in everything, in every situation. Because every time, no matter what the physical repercussions are, every time in every moment, we commit and rededicate ourselves to the truth and to living according to what's in alignment with body, mind, and soul, as opposed to what's in alignment with a structure or a paradigm or a thought or an idea or a belief system or any of these other things, then we are strengthening that within us that allows us the opportunity to see the gift that this life truly is. So even though my outside circumstances haven't changed that others can see, as in, an overflow of money and the ability to move into a place, like an island somewhere where I can surround myself with fresh fruits year round hanging from a tree and no governmental system over me and all of these things. I have reclaimed that freedom within to where I know I am not going, every moment of every day, there is no way in hell I will sacrifice my actions or words or thoughts in order to keep my physical being safe. I am willing to sacrifice this physical being in order to fulfill my purpose and accept my birthright and my gift as a human on this earth. And that is a profound gift that I give myself every single day. And it's literally just a shift in perspective. And that shift in perspective can only come by burning it all to the ground. And as I said, through my daily decisions and daily thought processes, not once allowing myself to give over to the comfort and convenience and false safety of going against what I know to be true and right thing to do. And that builds such a courage and confidence within yourself. I am so courageous and confident within myself. I trust myself beyond measure. I mean, it's not even fathomable for most people to even be able to comprehend the level of trust that I have within myself. And it only comes from every time I have denied the convenience, comforts, and safeties of these structures. And so, like that dream that I had the other night is such, it's just a gift, man. It's a total gift. When I made that video, I had literally just woken up, writing this stuff down, and immediately jumped in front of this camera to do that video, because I knew that if I didn't, it's so easy, because the way that these systems, our biological system, is set up for us to survive, is these traumatic things that happen, it allows us to forget immediately, very quickly, in order to not overwhelm the system. And what I'm doing by not allowing myself to forget and facing that monster, instead of tucking that monster back under the bed or putting it back in the closet, I'm gifting myself the ability to take that next step in my healing, to take that next step in my I don't like using this word, but evolving into, and all it really is a remembrance of who I am. And to be able to fully accept and embrace this gift. Is there anything else? It's just that these systems are so pervasive that it's not the government that is our biggest enemy. It's not the education system, the indoctrination system that's our biggest enemy. It's not the space program that's our biggest enemy. It's not it's not any of these political systems. It's not any of these religious institutions. It's our own minds. Because yes, in the beginning, as young children, these were our biggest enemies. But what they did was they got us to internally create our biggest enemy in our minds. And until we're willing to fracture and crush that into a million different pieces and let it go and rebuild the synapses within this complex brain and rebuild it on the truth from our own knowing and trust fall into the spirit and our own divinities, we're not going to be able to fully comprehend and embrace this. We're going to find ourselves coping through life. We're going to find ourselves just hoping to get through every day. We're going to find ourselves rushing. We're going to find ourselves constantly perceiving everything from our experiences from the past. And that's where these paradoxes lie, is getting this far in the journey is having to embrace these paradoxes. And it takes an extreme amount of grace, because you're like, well, something's got to be solid. Something, I got to have an answer. I got to have a 10 commandments here. I got to have something set in stone. Otherwise I look like a hypocrite, or I don't know what I'm talking about, or I don't know. And then everybody else is going to look at me like I don't know. And then I'll get no validation, and I'll just be waving in the wind. And no, that's not true. That's none of the truth. Those are just the feelings as you're building that. Those are just the waves that we go through as we're building that trust and reintegrating these new energies and getting rid of those old energies and renewing this vessel from every cell in our bodies to every thought we think to the way the synapses are firing to the way that everything's connected to the emotions and to the way it guides us through, the day and how we face every experience. And you really know, like I knew when I had broken through is when I look back, and even 4 months ago, 2 months ago, look at that man, and I'm like, wow, that was a completely different phase in my life. I'm not even that man anymore. That's the kind of growth there is, to be able to have that far drawn out perspective, to be able to look so differently and deeply into things a week ago. You would have taken it this way or that way, and then, coped or avoided or justified or excused or whatever. And so instead of doing that now, it's like, oh, wow, look at the new revelations this brought. Wow, that was really scary in the moment. Why was it scary? Oh, because I had these belief systems. Because I had this belief system, because I didn't think I was enough, because I didn't think I was strong enough, because I thought that this power outside of me was stronger, because I thought this, because I thought that. And you just realize that it all just comes down to the mind, and you know, as being these spiritual beings inside these physical vessels, that mind is the intermediary. And if we don't reprogram our own minds completely from the base, then we are going to find ourselves, no matter what virtue signaling we do to the world to show that we're, you know, improving our physical health, or, you know, improving our spiritual path by meditating and doing yoga and all these different things, right? They're benign. They don't mean anything until you truly break down the processes by which you're operating under. You're still stuck with the you're still going to be stuck with the end result being you're still not seeing this life as a gift. So what I'm saying is, unless you do 100% trust fall into this and give it all up willingly and gratefully, with the understanding that the whole sole purpose of it is to reclaim and remember that you are the only authority, you are sovereign. And until then, you know, it's all just spinning wheels. It's all just putting in all this effort for something that is getting you nowhere. And I don't know how clear this is coming out, you know, and that's one of the things I deal with when I make these videos is, you know, it's impossible to come across to everybody speaking in just one way. And that's why it's only for those with the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And that's why they spoke in parables, because you're not ready until you're ready. And even though my heart like bleeds to save everybody and to say the right words, the only thing I can truly say that is not coming from ego is to express it solely from authenticity and truth. And you know, so it can't be for everybody. And you know, you can read something, like I've had so many experiences in my life, and especially in the past couple years, where I'll read something or I'll come across something and I'll glean from it something and think I got everything out of it, and then it'll come across again to me like a couple weeks, a couple months later, a couple years later, and then I see so much deeper into it, and I'm like, how did I miss it? Well, it's because I had not fully sacrificed and given over everything yet, and healed enough yet to be able to integrate and even understand or comprehend the jewel that was in front of me. And that's why I'm always saying that, you know, the problem isn't that we don't have the answers. The problem is that we have a superfluous amount of bullshit answers. And until we are willing to burn all of it to the ground and accept that we have the answers within, and allow ourselves the grace to change, there's not going to be any true change. And, you know, power is the ability to change. And change is our responsibility as humans. And that power lies within. But we can't embrace that power and utilize that power if we only half-ass our giving up of these old paradigms. And completely dedicate our lives 100% to the truth. And what is the truth? The truth is within. It's within you, it's within her, it's within him, it's within me. And, you know, I had somebody tell me recently, well, my truth is my truth and your truth is your truth. That's true within these systems that have told us we're all different and we're all this and we're all that, and there's different races, different cultures, different this, different belief systems, different religions, different ways of governance, different. That's all bullshit. When we burn that all down and we get to the truth of the matter, we realize the truth is we're all human. And that truth is that we're all eternal souls occupying the most advanced biological system, and we're all connected to each other on a spiritual and a biological level. That's the truth. That's the foundational truth, period. And when you can get rid of all of your proxies, all of your argument points against that, and break your ego down enough to accept that fact, the world opens up to you. And you realize that you were whole to begin with. You just had to accept it. And I think I can keep on going, but I think I'll end that there. I feel that is enough for now. And I hope this finds y'all as it needs to. And I hope you can one day experience this trust, this solid trust and love for yourself, and embrace who you truly are and see every moment as a gift, and look at every external circumstance that happens to you as an opportunity to change, to embrace that power within, to make the changes necessary, to give up your vices, your addictions, and your false beliefs and hopes and comforts and safeties in order to reclaim this beautiful gift of the present moment. Take care of yourselves, guys. Nobody else will.